And our goal is to put highly nutritious, cost-effective meals into the food ecosystem quickly.
Hey, this is just about helping close that gap.
There's not anything that you can find this nutritious for 40 cents, period.
What led you to take so many different opportunities in the social impact sector? From South Bend to Evansville and everywhere in between, this is Get In, the show focused on the Hoosier State and the incredible stories happening here today. I'm Nate Spengel, founder of Get Indiana, and I will be your host for today's conversation. All right, folks, Mother's Day is around the corner, and I'm going to help you get prepared. Ditch the Amazon or Target candle and get mom something from Warm Glow Candle Company. They're based out in Centerville, Indiana, and they make some of the best candles I have ever smelled. They have made my house smell unreal. They aren't your average candle that burns out in 5 minutes. Oh no, your mom is going to get tons of use out of this, and every time she lights it, she's going to be thinking about how you are her favorite child. I love the apple cinnamon and the creamy vanilla bean, but my absolute favorite is the blueberry cobbler. It smells just like visiting my grandma's house after she spent all Saturday morning baking. If you've ever driven east down 70, you have probably seen their massive candle where the shop is, but you can also order online and they'll ship them right to your door. I know you're going to get your mom a candle for Mother's Day. Now you can do that and support an awesome Hoosier business in the process. Head to warmglow.com to check out all of their amazing scents. Now let's get back to the episode. Today I'm joined by Nick Reich, a passionate leader with over 20 years of experience in the social impact and innovation space. He is the executive director of Pack Away Hunger, where he leverages holistic coaching and nonprofit leadership to drive community transformation. Today we're going to be talking about some of his Indiana beginnings. We were just talking about basketball before we got on the air today. We're going to talk about career and community and how they're building a sustainable Indiana. Welcome to Get In, Nick.
Thank you, Nate. I appreciate it.
We were just talking about Jabron
Graves. Yeah. Every time
Jabron.
I get on now, it's been 15 years, and everybody still wants to talk about Jabron Graves.
So Nick was a coach at Indianapolis Metropolitan High School. To win the regional finals, Jabron Graves hit a 3-quarter shot, buzzer beater, 1 second left, and it made it on SportsCenter.
It did make it on SportsCenter, yeah. So, with any sport, with anything, you've got to have a lot of talent. You got to have a lot of luck. So,
yeah, right.
We had a lot of luck that year.
Exactly. Hey, sometimes better to be lucky than good.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's dive into a little bit about your background, right? So, when obviously you have 20 years of social impact work, an incredible career there. Where was that first moment, that earliest moment that you got interested in making an impact in your community?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned kind of in your start, it's from Evansville to, South Bend and everywhere in between. I grew up in Evansville. So early on, my mom was a special education assistant teacher when I was growing up. So I remember going into elementary school in Evansville when I was a kid and helping out there. So I think, come by that aspect honestly, and when I got to Indianapolis, my first role was with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis, social work background. So that's really kind of what started my career in Indianapolis, and really have kind of bounced around doing social impact, nonprofit work across the community for the last, like you said, 20 plus years.
Man, well, I always think that a career, Boys and Girls Club, high school coach, all the things, it's super fulfilling to be able to like help out the next generation and give back to the next generation. I mean, just incredible between coaching, right, and your work there. Kind of give us your career trajectory there, right? So started at Boys and Girls Club, and catch us up.
Yeah, when I moved to Indianapolis 20 plus years ago. First job, started my career at Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis. Went over to Goodwill Industries of Central and Southern Indiana. That's where I connected. I was the school social worker at Indy Met. So that's where I got into coaching, and the coaching was an afterthought. I wasn't trying to be a high school basketball coach. It just worked out. I joined Indy Met halfway through the second year of the school's existence. So we were just trying to find something for the kids to do after school, and then that kind of, transformed into the success that we had on the court.
Wait, it was the school's second year? What year did you win state?
2011. So I joined there halfway through the school's second year. We did kind of an intramural team. We used to go down to Christamore House, and then we applied for IHSAA. And then, so we won state in the third year of competing in the state championship, which I believe is still the fastest any school had won from non-existence.
I was going to say, wait, when did the school start?
5 years before that.
Dang. So 5 years, not even a high school, to having a state championship. That's crazy.
Yeah. I think
what do you credit that to?
Well, like I said, you got to have some luck. We got lucky we had 3 kids that kind of came in as freshmen. Lots of kids in and out of the program. That as juniors, we got a couple other pieces of the puzzle. Their senior year, we got a couple other pieces of the puzzle. So now we had 7 seniors. That it kind of, some of them had come up with me. I like to say we all grew up together. One thing I say a lot is you hear a lot of high school basketball coaches. You're a high school sports fan. Coaches always say no kid is bigger than the program. My philosophy was every kid is bigger than the program, right? We didn't have a program. We existed to serve the kids. We existed to create a space for people to be successful beyond high school. So, some of my kids may not have graduated high school if they didn't have basketball. So, we were not there to create this program and, no kid is bigger than the program. Like, we were just all in it together. The kids stayed in my home regularly. Some of them lived with me for a period of time. During that state run, it kind of became big on the news because before regional, semi-state, and state finals on the Friday night, all the kids spent the night at my house. So we had pizza and made sure they got up the next morning and we ate. We all went to the games.
Man, that's like part of coaching that people don't necessarily see.
Yeah.
It's like, I grew up in a house where it's like, it was just like second nature that my mom or dad would like wake me up and take me to practice or whatever it was on Saturday mornings. But that's not the case for everyone. And like different transportation needs, different circumstances. Like, and you got to make sure you got 7 seniors. You got to make sure, we need all 7 of you at the game on Saturday.
Well, and that was the thing. It was a lot of them rode Indigo for the bus. Our regional game was at Martinsville. We had the 10 a.m. slot, which means we have to be there at 9. We have to leave at 8. Indigo is not running on a Saturday morning all across town to get kids downtown at 8 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, it was more out of necessity. I need to make sure I know that they're all up. They're, getting where they need to be. So we had a little 15 passenger van. I drove it. It parked in my driveway. We got up the next morning. We went and had a day in regionals down in Martinsville, and then they wanted to do it again. It was good luck.
That's great. And then just sleepovers all the way through.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah, I love that. That's so much fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't get too much in. I could talk for hours about high school basketball, but I really want to talk about the work you're doing at Packaway Hunger.
Absolutely.
So catch us up from. You're coaching basketball. You're working as the social worker for Indy Met.
At Indy Met.
And then give me the next step.
Became the executive director of a poverty initiative called Circles Indiana, really focused on alleviating generational poverty initiatives. And then I went and did consulting with the Lumina Foundation. So I worked in social innovation with Lumina for 4 years on contract, helping them build out their impact investing function. I went to Recycle Force. So I was the VP of strategy over at Recycle Force, electronic waste recycling, only employing individuals coming out of prison. From there, I was the executive director at Timmy Global Health. So did primary health care in Ecuador, Guatemala, Dominican Republic.
Man, is there a DePaul guy who started that?
Yep.
Yeah, what's his name?
Dr. Chuck Dietzen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was back at a event this summer and he got like honored for something. But and he was like a doctor. Like what was his specialty? Like anesthesiologist or I don't even know what it was.
Worked a lot with kids so he had done some work and then founded Timmy probably 20 plus years ago now. So Timmy was a COVID casualty. A lot of our revenue came from people paying to travel internationally. So at the time we had 22 staff. I think they're still around with maybe 1 staff now. So it was trying to rebuild and trying to do some things over there. But
because I remember like there would be like summer or spring trips or whatever where kids would go and then you do some sort of medical service in Southern or South America?
Yep. So they would take doctors, nurses, pharmacists, along with college students interested in medicine to go down and participate in those brigades. So we did that for a couple of years and really was a dream job for me. But then navigating through, the pandemic and all of that with a team all over the world was challenging. So I left there in 2021 and then went to work for a national consulting firm focused on corporate culture, diversity, equity, and inclusion, employee experience, so a lot of corporate coaching, a lot of leadership development
work.
So
you got out of the nonprofit sector for a little bit
For a little bit, yeah. So then I was, still doing social impact work, still trying to make the world a little bit better. So I did that for 2.5 years, connected with Packaway Hunger. and came in as the interim executive director in June of last year, and then been in this role full time since July.
Heck yeah. All right, so give us the mission, underlying cause or underlying problem, and what are you solving at Pack Away Hunger?
Pack Away Hunger exists to alleviate hunger one meal at a time. So this is our 15th year of existence here in 2025. Been around. Initially was a Kids Against Hunger chapter, which was an organization that really focused on kids doing service opportunities, and most of those meals went internationally. And over time, that's evolved. About half of our meals still go to international distribution partners. The other half stay kind of locally where they're packed. Most of that's in Central Indiana. We have lots of initiatives. We go to Ohio, we'll go to Lake County, we'll go all over the state. But about half of those meals still stay in Indiana, and the other half go to international partners. Last year, we sent meals to Honduras, Guatemala, South Sudan, Haiti, Cuba, and since the fall of 2022, we've sent about 1 million meals to Ukraine. So it's a balance of local service, global impact, being able to address food insecurity and hunger wherever it's needed most.
Man, okay, so just give me the process of how you guys. I mean, 1 million meals since 2022 to Ukraine. Like, how do you even make 1 million meals?
Yeah, so it's an assembly line style. We rely heavily on volunteers. So all of our work is done through corporate faith communities, schools, civic groups. So we have 2.5 full-time staff. And last year we had about 7,000 volunteers. So it's very volunteer heavy on the work that we do. But we pack a soy and rice-based meal with dehydrated vegetables and an M+. So we've partnered with the Mattel Institute for the Advancement of Human Nutrition. They have an M+ packet, 21 vitamins or minerals. So not only is it a cost-effective, shelf-stable meal, our meal, we're one of the only groups in the country licensed to use this in the United States. It is also a highly nutritious meal. Vast majority of those and early on in the organization went to international partners. Over time, as food insecurity continues to increase around Central Indiana and around the state, we've done more and more to come in and address that. So working heavily with volunteers, we pack those meals and then we distribute them out to a Gleaners Food Bank, a Midwest Food Bank, to direct food to food pantries, really depending on where those things are needed.
Well, if you were in a youth group or maybe a school field trip, I feel like a lot of schools or groups across Indiana have participated in this. When you're talking about the soy bait, this all sparked a memory from 4th grade when we would go to the Napanee Missionary Church up in northern Indiana. I'm from up there. Yeah. And we would get in this big assembly line and you just pack meals for, 2 or 3 hours in an afternoon.
Exact same situation. There's some different groups around the state that do similar type of things. Maybe they were Kids Against Hunger chapters. Now they're different organizations, but absolutely a lot of youth groups, a lot of churches, a lot of corporations looking for a day of service, looking to volunteer.
Look, when you see this pack, it's like a plastic bag of a bunch of grain looking stuff.
That's right.
And I thought that it all went overseas and went to other places where, I don't know, I just think of Indiana, it's okay, you can go on the street and you can find some bread and some this and then a turkey sandwich, Sure. I had no idea that those are being used in our state.
Like I said, depending on where they go, we send almost 1 million meals a year in Indiana and growing.
And how do you, so you get this bag and you just put water in it and you have, or how does it work?
It's a rice-based meal. So you put water in it, you can make it in the microwave, you can make it on the stovetop. It's designed to be bland, right? Because it goes to Ukraine, because it goes to Haiti, because it stays in Central Indiana. It's designed to add your own local spices, vegetables, proteins, whatever it is. One of the big initiatives that we're working on this year is we've created 4 recipes using the NutriPlenty because, you mentioned in Indiana, we're not a rice-based culture, right? A lot of us don't grow up eating, we eat a lot of, corn and potatoes and meat. We don't eat a lot of, rice and soy. So we've created these recipes. So we can work with groups to do food drives for the ingredients in these recipes and create these meal kits. So we can actually now work to give food pantries a meal kit that has 4 of the NutriPlenty packets and all of the ingredients for 4 meals. So we can feed a family of 4 for a week for probably 30 or 40 bucks.
30 or okay, a family of four a week. Is that 3 meals a day, 2 meals a day? Give me the economics there of like what one of those bags costs to get to a kid or anyone in central Indiana and beyond.
One of those pouches is 6 servings. So again, it's rice, so it's going to expand once you get it in there. But one pouch is 6 servings. It is 40 cents per serving. So the average meal cost in the state of Indiana is $4 a meal. We're putting it out for 40 cents a serving is what we're able to do. And that's all of the raw materials, all the ingredients.
So $2.40 for one of those bags? Is that my math right there?
$2.40 for a bag, yep.
Okay.
And that's, where it's going to provide 6 servings. And that's, a family of 4 could be leftovers. It could not be, depending on how hungry somebody is. But it's probably not something that you want to eat 3 meals a day, every single day, wake up and have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But it is a highly nutritious meal that is able to have some level of flexibility, right? So you can put some taco seasoning and some diced tomatoes and some canned chicken in there and have a little bit of a taco flavor. You can do a chicken and white rice soup.
Oh man, we should do like a cooking show with that. That would be fun.
Well, it's funny you say that. We can talk about we've got a special event coming up, our first ever fundraising event. Our goal is to partner with 25 local chefs and restaurants. It's June 8th down at Cinderwood Event Center. We're calling the event Nourish, a NutriPlenty Challenge. Our goal is to get 25 chefs and restaurants. We're going to provide them with the NutriPlenty meals, and then we want them to get creative with some recipes to have a little bit of a cook-off. So we'll have folks come in, sample all of these different recipes, vote on the ones they like the best.
No way. Okay, so 25 local chefs from around Indiana are going to come in, try to make, are there rules or stipulations?
No rules. You've got to use the packet.
Yep.
Right? So you can't take out the soy, but you can add in whatever you want. So, for those listeners out there, I know this will probably come out in, like you said, maybe April. Yeah. So the event is in June. Right now, we've got 2 confirmed.
So we need 23 more chefs.
Absolutely. We're actively recruiting partners and chefs and things now. $20 ticket, family friendly. It's a Sunday afternoon, open house style. Come in, learn about Packaway Hunker, sample these recipes, vote for the one you like the best. We'll have a People's Choice winner of the NutriPlenty Challenge.
And you said this is your first fundraising initiative?
Yeah, so we're funded by our packing partners. So the way that the organization's been funded for 14 years and continues to fund is those churches, those corporations, those youth groups that want to come and pack, they pay us 40 cents per however many meals that they pack. So if a group comes in and they want to pack 10,000 meals, they raise $4,000 for the event. And that's how we've sustained as a nonprofit organization. It allows the pack partners, again, sometimes a company just cuts a check and says, we want to do this as a day of service for our employees. Churches will do it for international service. Some groups will fundraise. We have corporate sponsorships that, a corporate sponsor will come in and say, we want to fund, this youth group doing a pack. We work with community foundations around the state that will allow us to do and target food in their county. We just got a grant from Johnson County to put 15,000 meals into Johnson County food pantries. So it's a little bit of flexibility now to be able to do that. But yeah, first ever fundraising event, June 8th down at Cinderwood.
I love that. I think that'll be super fun.
It's going to be excited. We're getting a lot
Where's Cinderwood at?
It's right downtown, right by Lucas Oil. It's that Union 525 building.
Oh, yeah.
The event space up.
I got you.
I think it's 601 South Meridian.
Yep. I know that. I know the Union building. Yep. All right. To really understand, I think when I was a kid and I went to that, I didn't really realize that this was in our community. Yep. And so I want to talk about the root problem, and then we can kind of talk through the journey of Packaway Hunger. So when it comes to food insecurity in the state of Indiana, identify that problem and talk about that for us.
Yeah, so I think there's so many factors that come across this. One of the things that we see, malnutrition in the states in Indiana looks different than it does in developing countries. We think of malnutrition, we often think of, very skinny, some of these things. Oftentimes in the States, malnutrition shows up as obesity, right? So it's, we may not have a caloric deficit, but we may have a vitamin deficiency, or we may be malnourished in other ways because, we may, have eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of fast foods, some of these things. So really food
and that's due to availability, right?
Expense, so many things. There's certainly a convenience factor in some of that, being able to get fresh fruits and vegetables, some of these things in food deserts that we have around many of our communities. So certainly there's an economic piece to it. There's a convenience piece to it. We think about food security, it's really access to healthy, nutritious food when you need it. So when you think about food insecurity, a report that came out a couple of years ago says, in the state of Indiana, there's 93 million missed meals. So that's
a year.
So that's kind of that food gap. Right. So in Indianapolis and Marion County, that number is about 16 million of that 93 million. That's the number of meals that go missed by folks that, want to have those meals. So that's really what Pack Away Hunger exists to solve. Right. So our mission, our goal is to put highly nutritious, cost-effective meals into the food ecosystem quickly. We're one of the only groups around. We've got 16 million meals missing in the city of Indianapolis. With enough money, we could fill in 1 million meals, 2 million meals, 3 million meals.
And what's the current impact you guys are making now in Indianapolis?
Right now, we put probably last year, about 500,000 meals. Give or take, because, we put 100,000 plus meals in Lake County. So, spread out around, but in central Indiana.
And you said the total number was 90 million across the state?
93 million meals missed.
Smokes.
So it's not getting any better.
And that's all ages or just kids?
All ages, yeah. So you have, you can track kind of kid food insecurity, certainly things like free and reduced lunch, kids' ability to get meals at schools is really important. There's family kind of food insecurity and how we think about that, which is really, if you think about kids, the food insecurity really manifests in educational outcomes, right? It's hard to come to school and learn when you're hungry and you don't know where your next meal is coming from, right? When you think about families, it really manifests in economic outcomes, right? Where, it's an economic driver for folks to address food insecurity, where, more people can get to work and do some of these things. When you look at senior citizens, which is also another high food insecure population.
Really?
People live independently. Maybe they can't get out and with transportation as well as they used to be able to do. Then it starts to manifest as health outcomes, right? So we need to address senior citizen food insecurity because that's a health challenge. Now, health runs across all of those spectrums, but if you think about, education, economic, health outcomes.
Yeah, it's like, how are you going to think about solving like a geometry problem when you're like, your belly's rumbling and you're like, right. What the? I had Martha Hoover from Patachou and like her whole restaurant group on. And she talked about the work they're doing at the Patachou Foundation, which is like providing high quality meals to, and like changing out the kitchens that are.
They're doing amazing work and across the city doing some of those things. Like anything, it's just, we need more of it.
Yeah. Because there is like the normal school lunch, which is like, it is what it is. Like, I'm sure it checks all the boxes, but like, does anyone get that jazzed up for like the mushy broccoli, right? And then there is like the piece that you guys are doing where it's like, hey, this is just about like helping close that gap, and you said talking about outcomes. I'd love to hear your take and some thoughts of the work that y'all are doing and the outcomes that you're producing.
Some of the challenge that we have that we're working to address is our impact. What we know is these are highly nutritious meals that are going out to folks that need them around the world. We're kind of a middleman in some ways because our meals, a lot of the distribution goes through Gleaners, goes through Midwest Food Bank. They're getting them out to food pantries that they serve. So they're going all over central Indiana and around the state. And then those food pantries are getting them out to the individuals that use the food pantry. So we're a couple degrees removed from that end user. So one of the things that we're actively working on this year is how do we get more data? How do we get more reports on the end user from our pantry partners, from the food banks, because it really is important. What we know is there's, a number of international research studies on our meals, on the M Plus packet, on how it addresses malnutrition, how it addresses vitamin deficiency. We know this thing works, and we know it's a bland meal, right? So that's why we're getting more and more creative, because
So you guys get that feedback, right? It's like,
Absolutely.
it's like, this doesn't taste like anything.
Well, and people don't know what to do with it oftentimes. So, one of the things that we're working to address is creating these recipes. We're going to have a QR code on the pouches, a new recipe page on the website. So people that may get those can go and learn about different ways that they can use it. This event in June, working with these chefs, we're going to ask that they, put some of those recipes out, and people can get creative. We would love to work with your Patachu Foundation to be able to say, hey, here's these meals, highly nutritious for kids. How do you incorporate something like that into what you're trying to solve
This
for?
was something I learned at like a young age. And it's like when you think of like food drives and things like that, people always just give the shit that's at their back of their back of their pantry,
Half of
right?
it's expired.
And it's just like, they're like, well, it's like better than, and it's like, yeah, it's better than nothing. But like your kid or their kid, like, they don't like anchovies as much as you don't. Like, there's a reason it was left in your pantry, right? And so, like, yes, it gets the job done, but finding a way, like, food, thinking through that, like, it doesn't have to be just get the job done. Like, yes, there are, you're probably sending them abroad to people that something is better than nothing if you're in Ukraine and it's a war zone or something like that, right? But like here in Indiana, it's like you're filling the gap right now. But I think, finding a way that like a kid can eat this and not be like, oh, great, like bland rice and soy.
Well, if you made it fresh out of the bag and didn't put anything in it, it would be fine, but it's not something that you would be super excited about every single day, right? So you do have to add seasonings and some different things, some veggies, some, whatever it is. But all of our ingredients that we're creating are made with shelf-stable things that you might find out of a food pantry. So we can add some optional things in there. But, it's really about creating this opportunity, because what we see is we know that, again, there's not a more cost-effective, highly nutritious, shelf-stable meal that exists, period. You cannot get a meal for 40 cents.
So if you were like a doomsday prepper, like you'd want to have a few of these.
Have these things.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, put this down in your bunker, right?
As there's not anything that you can find this nutritious for 40 cents, period.
Well, I want to give a huge shout out to our newest partner, Hope Plumbing. Now, Hope Plumbing serves Indianapolis and the surrounding areas when it comes to all things plumbing, obviously. That includes sewer and drain, water heaters, water softeners, leak repairs, sump pump, gas lines, plumbing inspections, reverse osmosis system installation, router services, downspout installation, and septic tanks. What don't these guys do? Whenever I have trouble, I make sure to call Hope Plumbing. They always do a great job on my house. They're going to do a great job on your house. Go to hopeplumbing.com to check them out. Well, okay, so let's talk about outcomes then.
Yep.
So this is the issue. The issue is there's 93 million meals that are missed a year in Indiana. Yep. And you guys serve how many meals a year globally?
Yeah, so our goal for 2025 is 3 million. The most we've done is 2.2 million, so we're pushing. Last couple of years have been closer to 1.5, so our goal is to double this year, because the need is not getting any less. So we're pushing pretty hard to serve 3 million people in 2025. Yeah. So it's a stretch, and we're going to push hard to get there, but we're excited. We've got a couple big partnerships already for 2025. So we're off to a great start so far this year.
Do you ever like follow one of your meals to the end user? And like, it could be internationally or locally, but the impact that it's making in individual lives?
Yeah, so we get a lot of reports back. So we have a partner in Ukraine. They're sending photos, they're sending videos, on a very regular basis. The partner is called Be the Light, which is on the front lines in Ukraine. So we're getting those kind of impact reports. We know how many meals are being served. We're seeing the photos and the videos of the families that are receiving those things. We have a partner that sent, we sent over 250,000 meals to Cuba that will land sometime middle of March of this year.
How do you decide where they're going to go?
So it's kind of a two-pronged process. So sometimes the partner will tell us, hey, we work with a group in Cuba. We want the meals to go there. And then we will work with them to direct the meals where they want them to go. Otherwise, it comes up in depending on where the need is, where we have partners, but we just had a group that we're working with, and they want to serve, Islamic families. So we're directing meals and figuring out ways that we can ship into Cairo and then kind of redirect. So we
from
have
a high school basketball coach to figuring out how to route 100,000 meals from Cairo into, wow.
For me, it touches on the same thing, right? I would say, as we talked about, Recycle Force working with individuals coming out of prison, to Pack Away Hunger, to school social worker basketball. My goal is just to be of service, leave the world better than I found it. So,
and I feel like it's a non-traditional path through the nonprofit sector, because usually it's like pick your thing and stick with it, right? It's like, I serve kids that are facing food insecurity, or I do that. But like, you go from Boys and Girls Club to Goodwill to the Recycle Fort. So like, I mean, for you, has it always been, I mean, obviously you want to serve your community, but what led you to take so many different opportunities in the social impact sector?
Yeah, for me, I'm a builder and grower is kind of where I love challenges. I love new things. I love coming into organizations and divisions and teams where I can help build and grow. But like anything else, almost all of those career paths come from relationships. I've been involved with the Rotary Club of Indianapolis for 15 years.
For those that don't know, I know what Rotary Club is, but for those who don't know, tell us about the Rotary Club.
Rotary's an international service organization. So, 34,000 Rotary clubs, 1.4 million Rotarians around the world.
Rotarians.
So local service, global service. My focus has been a lot on international work. So international development has really been a passion of mine. I've chaired the World Community Service, the International Service Committee, since 2012. So we've worked on projects in 30 different countries since 2012. So
I feel like Rotary Club, maybe the younger generation isn't as keen to why join something like Rotary Club. Could you give us the sales pitch?
Yeah, I would say there's something for everyone in Rotary, right? So, there is local community service, but you're part of a global community, a global network of people that live by the motto of service above self. So it really is driven by opportunities to serve. But, you join the Rotary Club of Indianapolis, you can do work with kids in the education committee. You can plant trees with environment and beautification. There's community service. There's international service. There literally is something for everyone to get involved and be able to network with like-minded folks that care about their communities, want to give back, and can really, it's one of the few places that you can have this bridge between, local service and global impact. So I was just on the phone yesterday working on a project in Liberia, and then, I could do that through the work at the Rotary Club of Indianapolis. It's just a unique way to match those things that I care quite a bit about.
I love it. Tell us about how Pack Away Hunger got started 15 years ago.
Yeah, so founded by a great gentleman, Larry Moore. So again, it was a Kids Against Hunger chapter. So I don't have my Kids Against Hunger knowledge, but I believe it's a Minnesota-based organization initially. And it was a way for youth to get involved with service. They created these meals, and most of them would go internationally. It's probably very much aligned with what you were talking about in your community growing up. In 2010, my understanding is there were some challenges where a lot of the chapters decided to do their own thing and become independent 501c3s. So we were Kids Against Hunger Greenwood, and then in 2010 became independent as Pack Away Hunger. Very similar model, very similar assembly line style, packing events. Early on, still were very focused on international distribution. Over the last 14 years, really the model stayed the same. The meal packing, the meals have stayed the same. What's changed is where the distribution goes, focusing more on Central Indiana. And then over the last year, we've really pushed to find more ways to engage donors, partners, volunteers more year round, create more ways that we can be in fact impactful, like the meal kits and some of these other things. So not only how are we serving the volunteers, which has always been a really important factor because that's how we make our money as a nonprofit, but also how are we making sure that the meals are getting where they're needed most, and the impact that we have both on nutrition and food insecurity is the driving force in what we do every day.
What is the largest packing event you guys have hosted?
Yeah, so we work with Mount Pleasant Christian Church down in Greenwood. Just the last Saturday in January, they had about 1,000 volunteers, and they did 385,000 meals between, we started at 9 a.m., we were cleaned up and out of there by 2. So it is an efficient process, let me tell you.
How many staff do you guys have?
We have 2 full-time staff and 1 half-time. So we do all of that with 2.5 staff. 7,000 plus volunteers a year.
How does all the stuff get where it needs to go?
We have an efficient process, Nate. Let me tell you. So we have an executive director. We have an operations director. Angela's our operations director, does a phenomenal job of helping coordinate logistics of the events and then work on the distribution. So her role is helping get set up, run the events, and then get it out to where it's needed. And then, we've got a marketing consultant that does some marketing and comms, social media for us. And then we have a marketing and grants administrator that's in the office part-time, does a lot of our grant writing and reporting, and kind of keeps the office running and does a great job. So yeah, we're doing that on 2.5 staff.
2.5 staff, 1,000 volunteers, 5 hours, 380,000 meals.
Correct.
That is that 300? Okay, so it was a meal, 1 serving.
1 serving.
So that would be divided by 6.
Yeah,
that's a lot of public math.
Yeah,
so 60,000 of those bags, though?
Of the pouches. So, yeah,
over 60,000 of those?
We have 216 of the meals that go in a box, 33 pouches per box, 216 meals, 7,128 meals on a pallet. So however many pallets that had. But we had a full container of meals, 280,000 of those meals. They literally left the church and were on their way to port to be shipped to Cuba, by Monday.
It's just wild to me that you can make that big of an impact is coming from 5 hours on a Sunday.
I think one of the things that I've seen in, my 8 months of being the executive director at Pack Away Hunger is it has to be the best kept secret around. If I was looking at the budget for the state of Indiana, if I'm the city of Indianapolis, you can't feed more people for 40 cents a meal. You just can't do it, right? So, we've kind of shifted the way that we're talking about this, where you say, how many people do you want to feed, right? Forget about the volunteers. We can find volunteers. We have plenty of people that want to serve. But for 40 cents a meal, you've got a gap of 16 million meals in the city of Indianapolis, 93 million meals around the state of Indiana. How many people do you want to feed for 40 cents? Because we can scale up and we could be packing 5 million meals a year. The city, the state, a foundation comes in and says, we want to feed 1 million people. We could have 1 million people fed this year. Extra people, more people.
And so the biggest gap is getting the 40 cents per each meal.
Yeah. Which is nothing, right? And, but I think some of it has just been the way that we've not gone after grants. We've not gotten a lot of philanthropy. We've not gotten, government funding. Again, if you're the state of Indiana, if you're the city of Indianapolis, what we know is, and look, we are not a long-term sustainable solution to some of these problems. So investing in local farmers, in local growers, in food ecosystems, in addressing food deserts, all of that is critically important. And that's not the role that we're playing. The role that we're playing is we're putting cost-effective, highly nutritious meals into the food ecosystem today. We have a partner in Guatemala who I've known for a long time. They do a lot of nutrition work. And they're very focused on supporting local growers, supporting farmers, long-term sustainability in their community. And I asked the partner recently, I said, how do you balance this need for long-term sustainability, improving the food ecosystem in your community, and us sending you meals? And she said, we will never stop focused on the long-term outcomes, but my people are hungry today, right? And that's the role that we play at Pack Away Hunger. So we need the investment in all of these root causes. We're not creating that solution.
It's a Band-Aid.
It is, 100%.
Right? It's a short-term, because if you're growing a garden or whatever you're doing, it takes time to build all of the infrastructure. Talking about like food deserts.
Yep.
Like, I mean, there's several, and then there's been some initiatives across central Indiana in the last couple years to help, but it's like, you can't just like snap your fingers and a Kroger appears there or whatever.
I will never say we're not solving that problem. Right. We understand, come from a background that understands these root causes. We need to address root causes of poverty.
What are the root causes when it comes to food insecurity that people are trying to go and solve?
I mean, certainly now food access is really important. Access to healthy, nutritious meals, access to things like grocery stores and the food desert.
Yeah, what is the closest cost-effective option for fresh fruits, vegetables? Like, I think of like where I go and it's like the outside of the store, right? But it's like the most expensive part.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it's tough, right? And even when you go to a farmer's market, you go to some of these places, those are oftentimes even more expensive.
Oh my gosh,
right?
You go to the Carmel farmer's market, you better like be willing to fork up a kidney.
Right. So there's evolving options, right? I mean, there are investments in local farms and urban gardens and all these things. All of them are critically important. The work that Patachu's doing, the work that some of these other folks, we need all of it.
Is there like an initiative or an organization that you see as a good complement to the work you guys are doing, solving hunger now, versus like what's an org around Central Indiana that's doing a good job of fixing the root problem?
I think it takes everybody. So often organizations and in the nonprofit sector in Indianapolis and beyond are so siloed on doing this work. So the Indie Hunger Network is a great organization, has a lot of these organizations focused on food insecurity and hunger relief, your second helpings, your Meals on Wheels, Gleaners, Midwest Food Banks. So everybody kind of coming together to look at some of these things. But ultimately, these are not simple problems. They don't have simple solutions, right? Because everything gets so siloed around. It's a housing problem. It's an education problem. It's an economic problem. It's a transportation problem, right? I mean, there's so many of these factors, and we get kind of siloed in, what we're looking to address. But we need jobs, we need housing, we need transportation, we need access to to nutritious food. These are complex, systemic challenges. And really what we need, I think, is more organizations working through those silos and working collaboratively with people that do very different things that they do. So we've got job folks and hunger folks and housing folks all working together in ways that are unique.
Yeah, because the same people that need shoes probably need a meal.
Right.
And the same people that need a meal probably need a job, probably need... this, that, and the other. Like, and it's like, well, I only have 5 days a week, so it's like I have to go to this place. I got to go pick up a meal. I got to go to the shoe bank or this, that, and it's like, and I don't know. I don't think nonprofits think like, oh, we're competing for the same dollars or whatever. But it's like a little bit they are, right? It's Absolutely. Like if you have $1,000 philanthropy budget, it's like it's going somewhere. Yeah. But the more they could work together to make an ease of access for the consumer, sure. the end resident. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, right? And there's a lot of good people, a lot of smart people working on these things, right? And it's a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge, but figuring out ways to work cross-sector, work collaboratively. And I think that's one of the things that Pack Away Hunger does such a great job of is we're engaging the corporate community, right? Now, one of the things that we'll continue to work on is how do we tell the story? How do we talk about, so it's not just, we're not working with this company to provide a day of service where they don't care if they're packing a meal or a homeless kit or
planting trees or whatever. Yeah.
They're doing it to have a company day of service. That's great. But when they're with us and when we're providing that opportunity to serve, which is critically important, we need to be able to talk about this data, talk about food insecurity, talk about the impact that they're making, and switch that gear a little bit for someone mentally to not just say, I'm getting 4 hours of PTO to go volunteer, which is great. And these are things that I need to learn about, to educate myself on in the community, because we often don't know the impact of food insecurity and malnutrition in our local communities and the work that organizations are doing like Pack Away Hunger.
So this question is it's not to say like solve food insecurity.
Sure.
but how much money would it cost to feed every resident of Central Indiana that's missing meals?
I mean, if we think of 16 million, I'm not going to pull the math off now.
16 million times 40 cents.
16 million times 40 cents. And a scale like that, we could probably do it for much cheaper. You could probably do it for 25 cents a meal.
So 25 cents.
Call it 25 cents. Let's see where we land.
$4 million. So for $4 million, anyone who needed a meal this year in Indiana could have access to it. And whether they chose to go and pick it up or the logistics piece of it, not saying that, but to have enough food in the bank.
The data says there's 16 million missed meals in Indianapolis. That's probably growing. These are probably 2022. Everything's, a year or two behind on some of that data. What we know is with grocery prices, with some of the things, food insecurity is greater today than it was in 2022. 2022, that number was 16 million in Indianapolis, 93 million, give or take, around the state. So yes, $4 million, we could have, a healthy, nutritious meal for every single person that was missing a meal in the state, in Indianapolis.
For $23,250,000, everyone who needed a meal in the state of Indiana could get a meal. 93 million missing meals in 2022 throughout the year. Cost 25 cents to get a meal. So 23,250,000, that's what we need. All right. Mike Braun and company, you heard it here.
Well, I think that's the thing is when we talk about this, it's often kind of incomprehensible, right? When we talk about the fact that we have 2.5 staff with some event managers that can do 1,000 volunteers and 380,000 meals and have it distributed in like 8 hours, right? And do it for 30 cents, 40 cents a meal. The math just doesn't add up for people that don't understand what it is that we're doing. So yeah, when you see that, to be able to say, could we generate, there's a lot of other factors to be able to create 93 million meals.
You might need more than 2.5 people.
We probably need more than 2.5 people. We need a lot more volunteers. But the reality is the biggest gap right now is the funding and the partnerships. So, we could go from 1.5 million, 3 million, 5 million meals, probably without adding too much staff or capacity, just on 40 cents a meal. So for 1/10 of the average meal cost in the state of Indiana, we're generating.
Yeah, it's like thinking about one of those bags. And people at home, if you don't know, go look up Pack Away Hunger. If you don't know what we're talking about, I think most people will know what we're talking about. But like one of those big plastic bags full of all the nutrients, the rice, this, that, and the other thing, $2.40.
Yep.
You think like $2, you're getting like a double cheeseburger from McDonald's for that.
Right.
Versus 6 meals.
When you think, so the biggest food insecure community that exists, we talked about the children, we talked about families, we talked about seniors, college students across the country is the highest, 25% of college students, almost double.
Wait, what?
College students across the country, undergrad students, food insecurity rate is about 25%.
Now, why is that?
All the same reasons.
Broke college kids eating ramen noodles.
College kids. Well, and that's the thing. The most probably accurate comparison of our meals is probably ramen, right? I mean, it's easy, it's quick. You can make it in the microwave, put some water in it.
Dude, ramen's fire though, right?
Fire,
right?
Like,
dude, that's what you need. Those little flavor packets.
We need the flavor packets, yes. I mean, but that's ultimately the kind of comparison. But we're still cheaper. Right?
Yeah,
it's
ramen. I used to win. Which I think this is respectable, but I used to. I wanted to win the food drives always at our school, so I would buy ramen, like the big 24, but I would open it up. So instead of one item, it was 24 items for like $2, and you just like all of a sudden you spend $20 and you bring in 200. Like, how did Nate bring in 200 items, 200 individual packets of ramen? Boom.
There you go.
And it tastes good.
Nate. Yeah. So again, comparison-wise, that's probably similar. Cost-effective, some of those things what college students are doing. So many colleges are working through this. A lot of colleges have food pantries. There's not a lot of food in them oftentimes. So again, it's not an easy solution to some of these things, but we can target. We've worked with some universities that do meal packs with college students, and then we keep the meals in their college food pantry, right?
What's the biggest misconception about Pack Away Hunger?
One, I think it's, there's a misconception around the meals, I think, right? It's just, it's not something that folks in Central Indiana want.
And I had that misconception. For sure. It's like, we made this and I'm like, oh, so this is what people that are experiencing real need, like this is what they eat.
Yep.
but like we wouldn't, like I wouldn't eat this.
I think that's that's probably the biggest misconception, right? Is just, the food, we make it around the office with just, you have some, taco seasoning, some canned tomatoes, and we can make lunch, right?
Maybe we do this. Here's an idea for one of your upcoming fundraisers. We raise some money and I'll survive on nothing but pack away hunger meals for a month and document the process.
Let's do it.
And I don't know, there's a there that would be like, I just eat like breakfast, lunch, dinner with different flavors.
I love it.
I'll use each one of the chef's 25 different recipes.
There you go.
Now let's eat that for a month.
Eat it for a month.
And then document the process and people can donate money along the way.
Absolutely. Let's do it. I'm going to hold you to it, Nate.
All right. I'll get that. Well, I think it's also pretty like nutritious from the fact like it would keep me from eating junk.
There's, the one thing I want to acknowledge for, there's going to be some people that listen to this that know the meals. It is high in sodium, putting that out there. It is designed to be high in sodium. It's designed initially for the first 1,000 days of a child's life fighting acute and chronic malnutrition. So it's high in iodine, makes it high in sodium.
Okay, so maybe I'm not supposed to eat it for every meal for a month.
I'm acknowledging the fact that it is high in sodium, and it is also high in vitamins and minerals, 21 vitamins and minerals, things that are not in, you do a side-by-side nutrition comparison to a ramen or some of the other, things
Ramen's
that come
be
out.
high in sodium.
Very high in sodium. So I'm acknowledging that one, the meals aren't for everyone. Two, they are high in sodium. But, when you think about vitamin deficiency and it's right.
Right. Like this is you, and you're honest with that, which I appreciate.
100%.
You're not saying like, if we just do this is it fills a need immediately for a problem that other people are working on fixing.
Absolutely.
Like you're like the intermediary between like someone's hungry right now. We haven't fixed the food insecurity issue systemically. So like this needs to exist in the short term.
There is not I keep saying it, there's not a way to put more nutritious food for less money immediately, right? I mean, we could add 2 million meals in the next 6 months.
And ideally someone comes along and puts you out of business, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Like if we actually get to the point where we fix the problem, like you no longer exist anymore.
Would love that.
Which would be great, right?
Absolutely.
Like if they're, if urban farming and this, that, and the other thing, or it's like you just, great, like Central Indiana and beyond, like all these places, it's like cool. You could just like point your direction this way.
Absolutely.
And then the system to fix it comes in and fixes that, and then you point your system the other way. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. I appreciate your insight there. What is the most rewarding part of the work that you're doing at Pack Away Hunger?
I think for me, we're able to combine a lot of things with Pack Away Hunger, right? I talked about being in Rotary for the last 15 years. So service is important to me. So we provide opportunities for more than 7,000 people to be of service in their communities. So we're a way that people can create fun, inclusive, family-friendly service opportunities. So people can create tangible impact whenever they volunteer with Pack Away Hunger. And then we're able to feed over 1 million people every year. So it combines the ability to create opportunities for individuals to serve, for children to serve, for companies to serve. And we're able to, again, address local food insecurity and hunger relief, international, we're able to respond quickly to disasters or war or famine, to be able to get meals, where they're needed most. So that combination of kind of front end, back end, I think is unique to the work that we're able to do. And I find meaningful and impactful because I love when I'm able to see children, 5, 6, 8-year-olds with their families being of service, creating a tangible product that we know is having real impact, both on, again, around food insecurity, on hunger relief, on nutrition, all those things. So that balance of our being able to provide that opportunity on both sides is really, really unique in the marketplace.
If you had a magic wand and could change anything to help solve the food insecurity problem, what would you do?
I think collaboration is so important around all of these things. We've talked about, some of these, urban gardens or the food growers and some of these things. How do we support them? It takes individuals like that, the investment in them, and then let's take those vegetables and match it with a NutriPlenty meal, right? How do we have to solve this problem more collectively, and it takes more collaboration, a more holistic, systemic approach to all of these things. So, we want to solve this problem. We want to put ourselves out of business. And I think having a much more collaborative nature, and so much of that is tied to funders, right? We need philanthropy, we need foundations, we need the city and state to invest in those collaborations, to be able to say, we want to support, the money that we have targeted to solve this problem, we want to target, but only when you come to the table with an urban grower with vegetables, Patachu Foundation working in the schools, Pack Away Hunger, who's addressing some of these other things. How do you create more collaboration? Because ultimately, when you do that, 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
Right. We're able to do more together than we can do individually.
It's like the age old, like the adage of, if you give someone a fish, they'll eat for a day. If you teach them to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. Sure. But you gotta have the energy and the strength to pick up your fishing pole. So you need the both of them, right?
Takes all of those things. Yeah, absolutely.
Man, this has been a great conversation. We're coming down to the end. We have a couple fun segment questions here at the end. First one's our Younger Years segment, brought to you by our friends at Orr Fellowship. They're a great organization here in Indiana, helping develop young business leaders across the state. Nick, what advice would you give to your 22-year-old self?
Relationships are so important. The connections, the community, and being able to foster those, and really viewing. I think one of the things that I see now in the work that I do, who's a little farther along in my career, is really fostering those bi-directional things. So often when you're 22, you're thinking about, I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking to connect, I'm looking for folks that can help pour into me, but also to be of service, to give back, to be open to helping across wherever I can. I think is so important. And so I'm always trying to even now, if someone calls and wants to grab a coffee, if someone being able to support that. And I think at 22, you're so interested in kind of focusing on my career and my path, and really shifting that and being of service, and how can I help those around me in a slightly different way, not just focused on how I can advance, myself and my career.
I love that. I think that the most good happens to those who do the most good. I don't know if that's a quote, but like put some good stuff out in the world, and trust that good stuff's going to come back towards you. All right, now we're here to the lightning round. I have a couple fun questions for you. So besides Pack Away Hunger, what's your favorite local charity?
So I got to go with Rotary. I got to go with Rotary Club of Indianapolis.
Big Rotary guy.
I know. I am. So I got to do, because again, I'm being able to support some of those things locally, globally. So that's a big part of my time.
Okay, you're talking about, you guys have an event coming up on June 8th. Yeah. What are the other events you have coming on the calendar this year?
Yeah, this is a huge summer for Pack Away Hunger. So again, so in May, we're doing a documentary film screening on food insecurity. And then we're launching a 15-year impact paper along with that. So in June, we have our June 8th event. It's called Nourish, a NutriPlenty Challenge at Cinderwood. You can buy tickets and all that stuff's on our website, packawayhunger.org. July 10th, we're partnering with Run 317. So they're back in Broad Ripple for one of their Run 317 events, July 10th. So you can actually sign up to be a part of that. And we're the kind of charity partner July 10th. And then August.
Is that in the evening on the Thursday, July 10th? All right, I'm putting that in.
Yep.
I'm going to run that one.
Yep, Thursday evening. July 10th in Broad Ripple, we'll be there supporting and working with Run 317. August 28th, we're out at Hickory Hills Polo Club, and we're partnering.
Is that up by Lebanon?
Up in Whitestown.
Whitestown area.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're partnering with them as their nonprofit partner. So huge summer for
I think I need to go to Polo. I've never been to a Polo.
It's going to be a blast. I've been one time. It's a blast. So mark the calendar, August 28th. We'll have you there. But yeah, so we've got events in May, June, July, and August, really focused on celebrating our 15 years of impact, more than 23 million meals, more than 100,000 volunteers over the last 15 years. So we're celebrating big this summer.
All right. So you have all those events coming up.
Yep.
Great stuff. I'll be at the Run 317. You have Nourish coming up. Besides your events, You know, as you think through all these other nonprofits that host galas and events and all that, what's your favorite nonprofit event to attend?
The International Center has a great event on, think local, live global, or live global, think global. I apologize for screwing that up there, International Center.
Wait, what is it? International Center?
I think it's live local, think global.
Live local?
Yeah.
What's it about?
So it's just, again, connecting all of the work with international service and the impact that the international community makes on Indiana, the Indiana makes on the international community.
Live local, think global from the International Center. Okay, so what kind of stuff do they have there?
Send it over. I've only been a couple of times, so check them out on their website. Really cool event. I think it's coming up in April. Actually,
April 21st.
Yeah.
International diplomacy, eat Chinese food, dance to Russian music, celebrate a French holiday, and participate in Scottish games.
There you go. So
wow.
Obviously, we talked about the international piece, and there's so much flavor and culture around Indiana and the impact that we have around the world and that the world has on us. So I think, especially in the 2025, it's important to recognize the importance of refugees and immigrants in the international community and the role that we all play in kind of supporting and impacting and influencing one another.
I love it. These are the same 3 questions I asked to everyone that sits in the chair. First one, what's something the world needs to know about Indiana?
I think there's so much good in Indiana. It is such a, Hoosier hospitality is a real thing. We have such a service culture around the state, and we should highlight more of that.
Amen.
And high school basketball night.
High school wrestling, right? Did you know I'm the varsity coach at Bishop Stoddard? I'm the head coach. I've been the head coach there for 5 years now.
Well, my kids are at Brownsburg, so Brownsburg just had a nice little run in Indiana high school wrestling.
Dude, they are unreal. Like, phenomenal. 7 out of 14 weight classes. They were the champs.
Yeah.
Crazy. It could have been 8 too. It was like a last second one. I'll just give a brief caveat. I took 2 guys. We had 2 guys make it to state. They both got 6. Congrats, Jack and Sam. They're huge. So good. By the second session on day 2, so this is the third session. Third session, I believe. We had 2 wrestlers. We had lost more matches than Brownsburg had, and they brought 11. I'm just like, gee whiz, they're good.
So my youngest son's a senior at Brownsburg. So
do you play basketball?
He did not. My older son played basketball. My younger son does track.
Oh, fun. Okay, next question. Ask everyone. What is a hidden gem in Indiana?
I absolutely love, I spend as much time as humanly possible at Eagle Creek. So maybe it's hidden, maybe it's not, but everyone should be spending more time at Eagle Creek. So there's lots of great parks, lots of things, but
Eagle Creek's phenomenal.
Absolutely love everything about Eagle Creek, whether I'm paddleboarding or just on the trails. I absolutely love Eagle Creek. It's one of the first things I buy every single year. Every January 1st is my annual pass to Eagle Creek.
There we go. Love that. Final question. Who's a Hoosier that we need to keep on our radar? Someone who's doing big things.
A woman named Andrea Butcher. She is a phenomenal leadership development executive coach. She's building some really amazing things all over the country. Abundant Empowerment is the brand that she's building. She talks a lot about building an empire. She's someone that's very influential on my leadership journey and really looking at doing some amazing things this year in 2025, building community around leaders all over the country, doing work in Indianapolis and Philadelphia and Denver, local events, virtual events. So things that I'm excited to participate in, some of these events. It's just growing like crazy, some of the work that she's doing. Leadership is hard, and being able to develop our companies, develop our cultures. She's someone that I rely heavily on. She's doing amazing things, just launching this business and brand, and it's just taken off like crazy, supporting leaders all over the country and being more human-centered, being more focused on developing their people, developing their cultures, and creating community. One of the things that we all need more of, especially coming out of COVID, is continuing to develop communities of like-minded people. So she's doing amazing work, and I'm super proud to be adjacently connected to the work that they're doing at Abundant Empowerment.
Heck yeah. Andrea Butcher?
Yeah, that's right.
Amazing. Well, hey, Nick, thank you for coming on the show and sharing with us the issues that Central Indiana and beyond are experiencing when it comes to food insecurity, as well as sharing what Pack Away Hunger is doing to help fight that problem, both in central Indiana and beyond, across the state of Indiana and, over to Ukraine and other places. I do think we're going to have to look into what it would be like to survive for an entire month and do some big fundraiser.
Survive, Nate. It would be thrive.
Thrive. I mean, every day is
it's
thrive.
Not surviving.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's it's a good nutritious food. Like I'll be fine. I'm sure what I eat is actually way worse. Actually it's terrible. Like I'm like the ultimate go out to eater. So that would actually be really fun. We could raise a bunch of money. And then one last time, where can people find you? Where can people find Pack Away Hunger? And how can people get plugged in with those events?
Yeah, absolutely. So packawayhunger.org, social media at packawayhunger. Anyone that listens, just email me directly. So you can email nick.reich@packawayhunger.org. Email me directly. Say, I heard you on Get In, and we want to partner. We want to work. We've also got a info at Packawayhunger. But
what's the price if someone wanted to get some of their employees together? What's minimum barrier of entry to host an event with you guys?
Yeah, usually it's 10,000 meals.
So what is it like?
It's kind of the minimum. So around that, we can do probably a minimum of $3,000 investment, depending on where it is in central Indiana. We can go as low as a pallet, which is, like I said, a little over 7,000 meals. But that's kind of the minimum we can host we have a warehouse in Beech Grove, so we can host up to 50 volunteers there, but most of them, we come to you. So we come to your group, we come to your business, we can set up. But anyone that wants to get involved, again, 40 cents a meal to pack, but also if you want to sponsor, we've got tons of schools and youth groups that want to work and they're trying to raise funds. If you're a business and you say, we don't have the time, we don't have enough people, but we want to sponsor 25, 50 kids to be able to serve, then let us know. We can always direct those sponsorships into supporting youth service.
Heck yeah. Amazing. Well, hey, thanks for coming on. Keep up the great work. It's awesome to have leaders like you across central Indiana that are doing great work helping solve the problems that need solved.
Thanks, Nate. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Get In. If you like what you heard, make sure you leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This show is made possible by our friends up at Sweetwater. Whether you're looking to start a podcast or take your content to the next level, click the link in the description to see all my gear recommendations at sweetwater.com. If you want a behind-the-scenes look at everything we're doing across the state, make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Nate Spangle. Thank you so much for listening and being part of what makes the Hoosier State great. We'll see you next time here on Get In.